Have you ever wondered why so many people collapse during spiritual awakening? Why something meant to be beautiful often feels like chaos, pain, and loss? The truth is, awakening shakes your entire foundation. It strips away illusions, dismantles ego, and forces you to face the deepest shadows of your soul. Most people collapse because they mistake this sacred breakdown for failure. But here's the secret. Collapse isn't the end. It's the doorway to transformation. Today, we'll uncover the real reasons people fall apart during awakening, and more importantly, how you can rise stronger, wiser, and fully awakened. The storm of awakening. When most people hear the phrase spiritual awakening, they imagine serenity, peace, and a gentle unfolding of wisdom. They picture someone sitting quietly in meditation, glowing with calm energy, perfectly aligned with the universe. But the truth is, the first stage of awakening is rarely calm. It feels more like a storm. It shakes you to your very core, unravels your comfort zones, and forces you to confront everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world. In fact, the beginning of a spiritual awakening is not about gaining. It's about losing. Losing illusions, losing false identities, losing attachments that no longer serve you. It feels like the ground beneath your feet has been pulled away, and many people panic at this stage. They confuse the chaos with failure. They think, if awakening is real, why does it feel like everything in my life is falling apart? But what they don't realize is that this storm is not a mistake. It is the necessary breaking of old patterns, a demolition before the rebuilding can begin. Think about it. Before a seed grows into a tree, it must first crack open in the darkness of the soil. From the outside, that cracking might look like destruction, but in reality, it's transformation. The same is true for you. When awakening hits, your old shell, your old beliefs, your old ways of living begins to crack. It's uncomfortable, even painful, but it is the only way for your true self to emerge. This is why most people collapse during spiritual awakening. They don't expect the storm. They want light without darkness, rebirth without death, clarity without confusion. But awakening does not work that way. It is not about bypassing the human experience. It is about facing it head-on. The storm is what cleanses you. The storm is what strips away illusions. The storm is what makes space for truth. In these early moments, Teasing of Awakening, your emotions might feel heightened, your thoughts may race, and your sense of identity might feel like it's dissolving. This can be terrifying if you don't understand what's happening. But here's the secret. Collapse is not inevitable. Collapse happens when you resist the storm, when you fight against the process, when you cling to what is being taken away. But if you learn to surrender, to trust that this chaos has purpose, you will find strength in the very place where others fall. Remember, every great transformation begins with disruption. Caterpillars don't become butterflies without entering the chaos of the cocoon. Gold doesn't become pure without fire, and you will not awaken without weathering the storm. But here's the promise. If you hold on, if you trust the process, what feels like destruction will reveal itself as rebirth. So as we begin this journey, understand this truth. The storm of awakening is not here to break you. It is here to make you. If you can stand in the rain without running, if you can let the winds of change wash through your soul, you will not collapse. You will rise stronger, freer, and more alive than ever before. The shock of identity loss. One of the most unsettling parts of spiritual awakening, the part where many people collapse, is the loss of identity. For your entire life, you have built a story of who you are. You've carried labels like a badge, your name, your career, your achievements, your family roles, your religion, your culture. These layers of identity have given you a sense of stability. They have been the anchors of your personality, the framework through which you saw the world. But when awakening begins, these layers start to crumble, and you suddenly feel like a stranger to yourself. Imagine standing in front of a mirror and not recognizing the reflection. You look the same, but inside, you feel completely different. The hobbies you once loved lose their charm. The conversations you used to enjoy now feel shallow. The goals you chased for years no longer inspire you. It feels as if the person you were is fading away, and this realization terrifies most people. They think, if I am not my job, if I am not my relationships, if I am not my past, then who am I? This is the shock of identity loss. It feels like death, and in a way, it is. The death of the false self. The death of the ego's carefully crafted story. And because we are conditioned to cling to stability, many collapse here. They scramble to hold on to the old identity, trying desperately to fit back into the version of themselves they've outgrown. But that's like trying to squeeze into clothes that no longer fit. You can try, but it will always feel tight, uncomfortable, and suffocating. Here's the truth. Identity loss during awakening is not a punishment. It's a doorway. You are being stripped of who you thought you were so that you can discover who you truly are. The roles, the titles, the masks, those were never your essence. They were chapters, not your whole book. Awakening removes them so you can me to the real you, the eternal soul, the boundless spirit that existed long before society told you who to be. And yes, this transition feels frightening. We humans crave certainty. We want a definition, a label, something to cling to. But the spiritual path teaches you to embrace the space between identities, the sacred void where the old has ended, but the new has not yet begun. That in-between space is where growth happens. It is uncomfortable, but it is also where you begin to taste freedom. Think of a snake shedding its skin. During the shedding, the snake is vulnerable, exposed, even uncomfortable, but it cannot remain in the old skin. It would suffocate. You are the same. The old identity is too small for your expanding soul. To collapse in this stage is to refuse your own growth, but if you trust the shedding, you'll emerge renewed, lighter, freer. So, when you feel the shock of identity loss, don't see it as an ending, see it as a beginning. You are not losing yourself. You are simply losing the illusion of who you thought you were. Beyond that illusion lies your truest identity, not temporary, not fragile, but eternal. Overwhelm of emotions. Another reason most people collapse during spiritual awakening is the tidal wave of emotions that suddenly rises to the surface. For years, maybe decades, you've been taught to suppress, hide, or ignore your feelings. Society told you to stay strong, keep smiling, and move on. But the truth is, nothing ever truly disappears. The pain, the fear, the grief, the anger, it all gets stored deep within your mind and body, waiting for the day it will finally demand release. And awakening is that day. When the light of awareness shines into your life, it doesn't just illuminate peace and joy, it also exposes the shadows you've kept buried. Suddenly, memories resurface, old wounds reopen, and emotions you thought were long gone flood back like a storm. You might cry without knowing why. You might feel anxious for no apparent reason. You might even feel anger towards situations you thought you had forgiven. It feels like chaos, and for many, this is where collapse happens. They panic, believing something is wrong with them. They confuse healing with breaking. But here's the truth. Nothing is wrong with you. The storm of emotions is not here to destroy you. It's here to cleanse you. These feelings are not new. They are old energies finally surfacing so they can leave. Awakening is like spring cleaning for the soul. Everything hidden in the closets of your heart comes out, not to punish you, but to free you. Think of it like this. Imagine a pond that has been still for years. At the surface, the water looks clear. But the moment you stir it, the mud from the bottom rises and clouds the water. Awakening stirs your soul. The mud of suppressed emotions rises to the surface. It looks messy, it feels heavy, but it is the very process of purification. If you stay patient, the water eventually clears, and this time, it is pure all the way through. The challenge is that most people resist this stage. They judge their emotions. They label themselves as broken or weak for feeling so much. They collapse, because they think they are going backwards, when in truth, they are finally moving forward. Awakening is not about running from your emotions. It's about meeting them fully, feeling them without fear, and allowing them to release. Here's what you must remember. Emotions are energy in motion. They only harm you when you trap them, when you refuse to feel them. During awakening, when tears fall, let them fall. When anger rises, acknowledge it. When sadness surfaces, sit with it. Every emotion you allow yourself to feel without judgment is one more layer of healing, one more chain broken, one more step toward freedom. So don't collapse when emotions overwhelm you. Understand that this is your soul's way of cleaning house. It is not the end. It is the beginning of emotional liberation. Your heart is being emptied of pain so it can be filled with peace. The pressure of loneliness. One of the heaviest weights people feel during spiritual awakening is loneliness. When your consciousness begins to shift, you start seeing life in a way that others around you may not understand. Suddenly, conversations that once excited you feel shallow. The friends you always connected with may no longer resonate. Even family members might look at you with confusion when you try to share what you're going through. And so, a deep silence surrounds you. This is where many people collapse. They confuse loneliness with abandonment, isolation with failure. But here's the truth. Loneliness is not a sign that you are on the wrong path. It is a sign that you are growing beyond the old crowd. Awakening expands your vision. You begin to see truths that others cannot see until they too are ready. That doesn't mean you are better than them. It simply means your soul is walking a different stage of the journey. Think of it like climbing a mountain. At the base, the ground is crowded with people. Everyone is talking, laughing, and walking together. But as you climb higher, the path narrows and fewer people continue upward. Eventually, you may find yourself walking alone. Not because you are unloved, but because not everyone is ready for the altitude you are reaching. Spiritual awakening is like this. You are rising higher in awareness, and the air becomes thinner. Few people understand it, so the path feels empty. This loneliness, however, is not a curse. It is an invitation. It is the universe creating sacred space for you to meet yourself. When all the noise of others falls away, you finally hear your own soul. You begin to recognize that the companionship you were searching for outside has always existed within. Loneliness is not emptiness. It is the beginning of communion with your higher self. The collapse happens when people resist this stage. Instead of embracing solitude, they rush back to old environments, forcing themselves to fit where they no longer belong. They cling to relationships that drain them just to avoid silence. But in doing so, they miss the gift of awakening, because only in solitude do you learn that being alone does not mean being lonely. It means being whole. In fact, some of the greatest spiritual teachers in history walked through this valley of solitude. Prophets, sages, mystics, they all experienced seasons of isolation where they were misunderstood, even rejected. Yet, those very seasons shaped their inner strength, deepened their clarity, and prepared them for their purpose. Your loneliness is no different. It is not here to crush you. It is here to shape you. So when you feel the pressure of loneliness, don't collapse. Embrace it as your training ground. Use that silence to meditate, to journal, to connect with your higher self. Recognize that the universe has not abandoned you. It is drawing you inward, so that when the right people do arrive, you will meet them not from need, but from wholeness. Loneliness is not the end of connection. It is the birthplace of true connection, starting with yourself. Fear of the unknown. One of the greatest reasons most people collapse during spiritual awakening is the fear of the unknown. From childhood, we are taught to crave certainty. We want answers, definitions, labels, and a clear path ahead. We find comfort in routines, in traditions, in plans. But spiritual awakening disrupts all of that. Suddenly, the path you thought you were walking no longer feels right. The dreams you once chased lose their meaning. And for the first time, you find yourself standing at the edge of a vast mystery. The future is no longer something you can predict. It becomes a question mark. And that terrifies the ego. The ego thrives on control. It wants to know what's coming next. It wants to cling to maps, rules, and formulas. But awakening pulls you out of that illusion. It reminds you that life has never been fully under your control, that it has always been a flowing river, not a fixed road. When people realize this, many collapse. They would rather run back to the old familiar prison than step into the open field of the unknown. But here's the truth. The unknown is not your enemy. It is your greatest ally. The unknown is where your growth lives. The unknown is where your expansion begins. If everything were already certain, there would be no room for miracles, no space for transformation, no chance for you to discover new parts of yourself. The unknown is not empty. It is full of possibilities waiting for you to step forward. Think of a seed. When it is planted in the soil, it has no map of what will happen next. It doesn't know how tall it will grow or how many branches it will form. Yet, in surrendering to the unknown, it becomes a mighty tree. The same is true for you. When you embrace the uncertainty of awakening, you open yourself to becoming something far greater than your old self could imagine. The fear arises because the unknown feels like death to the ego. It whispers, if you don't know where you're going, you'll fail. If you let go of control, you'll collapse. But that is a lie. The truth is, surrendering to the unknown is the only way to truly live. Every great breakthrough in human history came from someone stepping into the unknown, from explorers who sailed across uncharted seas, to inventors who believed in what had never been seen, to seekers who trusted the unseen hand of the divine. The collapse happens when people freeze at the threshold. They let fear stop them from stepping forward. But if you can reframe the unknown, if you can see it not as darkness but as a sacred womb of new creation, then the fear dissolves. What looks like uncertainty is simply space for your higher self to create a new chapter. So, when you face the fear of the unknown, don't collapse. Breathe. Trust. Step forward. The unknown is not here to destroy you. It is here to reveal the life you were always meant to live. Physical and mental exhaustion. Another powerful reason most people collapse during spiritual awakening is the sheer physical and mental exhaustion that comes with it. Awakening is not just a mental shift. It is a complete rewiring of your body, mind, and spirit. It shakes the foundation of who you thought you were, and that takes energy, a lot of energy. When the awakening begins, you may feel unusually tired. Sleep patterns become irregular. You may struggle with insomnia one night and sleep deeply the next. Your body may feel heavy, as though carrying an invisible weight. Simple tasks might drain you, and the motivation you once had to chase worldly goals suddenly fades. This isn't laziness, it's transformation. Your body is recalibrating. On a mental level, the exhaustion comes from overthinking and overstimulation. Imagine your mind as a computer that has been running too many programs at once. Suddenly, awakening downloads a new operating system. Old beliefs clash with new insights, and your brain works overtime to process it all. You may feel confused, foggy, or unable to focus. Some days, even making small decisions feels overwhelming. Many collapse here, mistaking the exhaustion for weakness or failure. But let me tell you the truth. Exhaustion during awakening is a sign of progress, not defeat. Just like a caterpillar must rest inside its cocoon before it transforms into a butterfly, you too need periods of stillness, rest, and renewal. The exhaustion is your body's way of saying, slow down, I am building something new inside you. Unfortunately, most people fight against it. They try to push themselves as if nothing has changed. They force productivity, overwork their bodies, and drown their minds in constant stimulation. This resistance leads to collapse because they fail to honor the natural rhythm of awakening. Transformation requires cycles of activity, and rest. Just as day needs night, your awakening needs pauses. Think of athletes. After intense training, their muscles ache, their bodies demand recovery. Without rest, they risk injury. Awakening works the same way, but instead of muscles, it is your soul that is stretching and expanding. If you don't allow rest, you burn out. But if you listen to your body, if you let yourself slow down, you'll rise with even more strength and clarity. Here's a secret. Exhaustion is often the universe pulling you away from distractions. When you're too tired to engage in endless noise, you are gently guided inward. You're given space to reflect, to meditate, to connect with yourself on a deeper level. Your exhaustion is not punishment, it's protection. It is life pressing pause so you can reset. So don't collapse when exhaustion comes. Honor it. Rest without guilt. Journal, breathe, stretch, sit in silence. Allow your body and mind to release what they no longer need. The energy you think you've lost is not gone. It's being redirected toward building a stronger, wiser, and freer version of you. Exhaustion isn't the end of the journey. It's the refueling station. And if you trust the process, you'll rise again, stronger than ever. Doubt and loss of faith. One of the most dangerous storms people face during spiritual awakening is doubt. Doubt in themselves, doubt in the process, and even doubt in the divine. This doubt, if not understood, can crush the spirit and lead many to collapse on their path. When awakening begins, it often feels magical at first. You notice synchronicities, heightened awareness, and moments of deep peace. But as the journey continues, challenges appear. Old wounds rise to the surface, illusions shatter, and the comfort of certainty disappears. It's in these dark valleys that doubt creeps in. You start questioning, am I imagining all this? Am I crazy? Did I make a mistake leaving my old life behind? What if none of this is real? This doubt is natural. Why? Because awakening pulls you beyond logic, beyond the structures your mind has relied on for safety. The ego, which craves control and certainty, panics. It whispers lies. You're lost. You're wasting your time. You should give up. And many people, sadly, listen. They mistake the presence of doubt for the absence of truth. But here's what you must remember. Doubt is not the end of faith. It is the test of faith. Just as fire tests gold, doubt tests your belief in yourself and the higher power guiding you. True faith isn't built in comfort, it's built in uncertainty. If your belief only stands when life is easy, then it isn't faith, it's convenience. Real faith is when you hold on even when everything seems to be falling apart. Throughout history, every spiritual seeker has wrestled with doubt. Prophets, saints, mystics, they all walked through seasons of darkness where they felt abandoned or unsure. Yet, those very moments strengthened them. Why? Because doubt forces you to dig deeper. It pushes you to move beyond second-hand beliefs and discover your own unshakable truth. Think of a seed once again. When it's buried under ground, it is surrounded by darkness. If the seed had a voice, it might say, I'm lost, I've been abandoned, nothing is happening. But in truth, everything is happening. It is preparing to break open, to rise toward the light. Doubt feels like that darkness. But if you endure it, you will break open into clarity and growth. The collapse happens when people confuse doubt with failure. They think, because I doubt, I must not be strong enough. Because I question, I must not be spiritual enough. But questioning is not weakness. It is part of the path. Even the strongest faith is born through questions, not in the absence of them. So when doubt and loss of faith arrive, don't collapse. Instead, pause, breathe. Remember how far you've already come. Reflect on the signs, the moments, the truths that first awakened you. Trust that doubt is not here to destroy you. It is here to strengthen your connection with the divine. Faith isn't the absence of doubt. It's the courage to keep walking through it. Overwhelm from rapid change. Another major reason most people collapse during spiritual awakening is the overwhelm that comes from rapid change. Awakening is not a gentle, slow process. It often arrives like a storm, shaking every part of your life at once. Old habits break down, relationships shift, your perspective on reality changes, and suddenly the ground beneath you no longer feels stable. It's like trying to stand on moving sand. You can't find balance, and that creates panic. In the early stages, people expect awakening to bring peace, bliss, and clarity. And while those moments do come, they are often preceded by chaos. Why? Because your old self must dissolve before your new self can rise. That means everything built on falsehoods, beliefs, attachments, identities must collapse. And collapse feels terrifying when it happens all at once. Imagine cleaning out a house you've lived in for decades. Every drawer, every closet, every hidden corner must be emptied. Dust rises, memories surface, clutter spills everywhere. In that messy middle, it feels overwhelming. But only after the clearing can the house shine again. Spiritual awakening works the same way. The process of clearing out can be so intense that many people break down under the weight of it. The overwhelm comes from not just internal shifts, but also external ones. You may lose interest in your career, feel distanced from friends or family, or outgrow hobbies that once defined you. These changes happen quickly, and the speed of transformation leaves people disoriented. The mind, which craves stability, screams, "Too much, too fast, I can't handle this." And often, that's when people collapse. They retreat back into old patterns just to feel safe again. But here's the key. Overwhelm is not a sign you are failing. It's a sign you are evolving. Think of a snake shedding its skin. The process is uncomfortable. Isolation and loneliness. One of the most painful and misunderstood reasons people collapse during spiritual awakening is the deep isolation and loneliness they experience. Awakening separates you, not because you are meant to be alone forever, but because the path requires space, silence, and detachment from old energies that no longer serve you. Unfortunately, most people mistake this sacred solitude for abandonment, and in that misunderstanding, they collapse. When you awaken, you begin to see life differently. Your values shift. The conversations, interests, and routines that once felt normal may suddenly feel shallow or meaningless. Friends you used to connect with might not understand what you're going through. Family members may dismiss your transformation as strange or irrational. This disconnect creates a feeling of isolation, like you no longer belong anywhere. This loneliness can be crushing. Humans are social beings, wired for connection. When awakening pulls you away from your old circles, it feels like being exiled. You might think, why am I the only one experiencing this? Why can't anyone understand me? The silence becomes heavy, and many collapse here, running back to old habits or relationships just to fill the void. But here's the truth. Isolation during awakening is not punishment, it's preparation. Just as a seed must be buried in darkness before it can sprout, you too are being given a sacred season of solitude to grow. In this space, you're not being abandoned, you're being refined. Loneliness is the cocoon where transformation happens. Think about it. Some of the greatest spiritual teachers and thinkers in history experienced long periods of solitude. Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree. Jesus went into the wilderness. Prophet Muhammad retreated to the cave of Hira. Why? Because in silence and isolation, the noise of the world fades, and the voice of the soul becomes clear. The collapse happens when people misinterpret this loneliness. Instead of embracing it, they resist it. They chase constant distractions, cling to toxic relationships, or numb themselves with endless entertainment. But these actions only delay the transformation. True awakening requires courage to sit in the silence, to befriend yourself, and to realize you are never truly alone. The universe, the divine, is always with you. Here's a shift in perspective. Loneliness is not the absence of people, it is the presence of yourself. It is life calling you back to your own heart. When you use isolation to deepen your connection with your soul, it transforms into solitude, a sacred space where you find peace, creativity, and clarity. So if you are on this path and feel alone, don't collapse. Use this season wisely. Meditate, write, pray, create. Let the silence teach you. Remember that the people meant for your awakened self will appear when the time is right. You are not losing connection. You are preparing for deeper, more authentic ones. Loneliness is not the end of your journey. It is the bridge that carries you into your highest self. Fear of losing control. Perhaps the greatest reason most people collapse during spiritual awakening is the fear of losing control. From childhood, we are conditioned to believe that control equals safety. We plan, we organize, we cling to routines, and we believe that if we just manage everything perfectly, we can avoid pain. Awakening disrupts this illusion. It shows us that much of what we thought we controlled was never really ours to control in the first place. During spiritual awakening, life begins to strip away layers of false security. Relationships shift, careers dissolve, identities fall apart, and the ego starts to panic. Why? Because the ego thrives on control. It needs certainty, labels, and predictability to survive. When awakening dismantles those illusions, fear arises. If I'm not who I thought I was, then who am I? If I can't control what happens next, how can I survive? This fear can be overwhelming. People feel like they're falling into chaos with no ground beneath them. Many collapse here, desperately trying to cling to old patterns, forcing situations, or running back to comfort zones just to feel in control again. But here's the truth. Control is the greatest illusion, and surrender is the greatest freedom. Imagine trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips away. Life works the same way. The more we grip and resist change, the more suffering we create. But when you release control and let the water flow, you discover peace. Awakening asks you to do the same. Trust the flow of life instead of fighting it. Losing control does not mean losing power. In fact, it's the opposite. When you let go of the illusion of control, you open yourself to a higher guidance, a divine intelligence far greater than your ego's limited plans. Think about it. How many times in your life did something you feared turn out to be a blessing? Gee, how many times did the universe redirect you to something better than you could have planned? That is the power of surrender. The fear of losing control is really the fear of trusting. Trusting yourself, trusting the process, and trusting the divine. And yes, it feels scary at first, but once you surrender, you begin to see that what falls away was never meant for you, and what flows toward you is exactly what your soul needs. Instead of collapsing in fear, practice surrender daily. When anxiety rises, pause and breathe. Whisper to yourself, I don't need to control everything. I am guided. I am supported. I am safe. Each time you release the grip of control, you create space for peace, clarity, and miracles to flow into your life. So remember this, awakening does not ask you to lose control. It asks you to release the illusion of it. And in that surrender, you will discover a power, a freedom, and a peace that control could never give you. As we reach the end of this journey, let's take a moment to breathe deeply and reflect. We've explored why so many people collapse during spiritual awakening. The fear of uncertainty, the ego's resistance, the overwhelming emotions, the disconnection from society, the breaking down of identity, the discomfort of silence, the intensity of rapid change, the pain of loneliness, and the terrifying fear of losing control. These are not random struggles. They are the very gates through which every awakened soul must pass. Spiritual awakening is not a straight, peaceful path. It is a storm that shakes you to your core, pulling down the walls of illusion you've built around yourself. And yes, many collapse under that weight, but you do not have to. Collapse happens when you misunderstand the process, when you believe that the chaos means you are failing, when in reality, it means you are transforming. Think about it. Every great rebirth begins with destruction. The seed must crack open for the plant to grow. The caterpillar must dissolve into nothingness before becoming a butterfly. The night must grow darkest before the dawn. Awakening is no different. What feels like falling apart is, in truth, falling into alignment with who you really are. The key to not collapsing is surrender. Instead of resisting the storm, you learn to dance within it. Instead of fearing loneliness, you embrace solitude as sacred. Instead of clinging to control, you trust the flow of life. Awakening asks you to trade fear for faith, resistance for acceptance, and illusion for truth. And when you do, what once felt unbearable transforms into liberation. Remember, you are not alone in this. Millions of souls across the world are walking this same path, facing the same struggles. You are part of a larger awakening, a collective shift in consciousness. The fact that you are experiencing this means you are being chosen, refined, and prepared for a greater purpose. So when the fear rises, when the silence feels heavy, when the changes come faster than you can handle, pause, breathe, and remind yourself, this is not the end. This is the beginning. The storm is not here to destroy you. It is here to cleanse you. The pain is not here to punish you. It is here to free you. The collapse you fear is not a collapse at all. It is the breaking of chains you no longer need. You are not weak for feeling overwhelmed. You are not failing for feeling lost. You are awakening. And the fact that you are still here, still listening, still walking this path, is proof that you are stronger than you realize. So rise, stand tall in the storm, trust the process, embrace the unknown, and remember, what feels like collapse is actually the construction of your highest self. This is not where you end, it's where you begin. Don't collapse, transform. Don't fear the storm, become the calm within it. Because this is your awakening, and your soul was made to rise.